Well, Nigel Melville, thanks very much for your time. What's the thinking behind the new Women's Super Rugby competition?
I think it's taking women's rugby to a new level, and I think from a high performance perspective, it's providing a high performance environment for our athletes to play, and competition to me is very, very important in the development of an athlete. So developing these players is important, but the other side of it is to make it aspirational, to make sure there is a pathway through to the national team, which means that it's a stepping stone along the way to something else. I think there's a gap in our pathway at the moment, and we need to create a really high performance environment that's focused on developing national team players.
The detail suggests a multi-million-pound investment. Where is that money going to be invested within the process?
The critical piece is this isn't going straight to players' pockets. This is going into developing the structures where we can develop the tournaments as a whole. So that would be, for example, payment of coaches, payment of doctors, physios, strength and conditioning, nutrition support, insurance, making sure that player welfare pieces are in place first, and making sure the structures are there in order to develop the game.
The current sort of top competition, the Women's Premiership, it's not hugely visible in the sort of marketing that they're able to undertake. How are you looking to improve that side of things so that the product is visible to punters and potential future players?
Yeah, well, I think we've got great resources here at the RFU, and those resources should be directed where we can get the best bang for our buck, because I think the big thing here is to say, let's give the game more visibility, let's get our top class operators behind women's rugby, let's get them behind this competition, let's give it visibility, let's get the communications piece in place, let's get some broadcast. And so I think there's so many opportunities here to sort of get hold of all the skills around the place and bring them into one competition and support it and drive it forward.
I know you weren't on the panel itself, but in terms of some of the decisions that have been made there, obviously there are some that are happier and some that are less happy. I know that some of the criteria was sort of 30 Premiership players, perhaps other players for a second-tier competition. When you look at a club like Lichfield, who are one of the more high-profile clubs to miss out, they've got England players there, they've got a second team that's at the top of the Championship, so arguably sort of, they're the 12th best team, almost their second team, against someone like perhaps Loughborough, who've obviously got a very good infrastructure, but their player base is largely students at this time. What's the sort of thinking behind those sort of decisions?
Well, there's a panel put in place for that reason, because we knew there was going to be some tough decisions to make, and I think we got an independent chair, we got specialists in various areas to actually advise us on this and make sure we're making the correct decision for the longer term. It wasn't just about next week or the week after. This is about a long-term development of a competition, and we needed to be geographically placed, which we talked about. We needed to have the facilities in place to produce a high-performance environment, and we needed the personnel to support that high-performance environment. Yes, players came into that, obviously. Everyone was scored in the same way, and as a result of that, the decisions were made. So I think it was a pretty fair process. Everyone had a chance to present, everyone gave the minimum standards and fulfilled the best they could. And yes, there were some winners and some losers. And when I look at it, I think, look, it's not the end of the day. It's not the end. There's going to be an opportunity to move forward in the future. There will be a relegation promotion situation. There is a chance to create those standards, improve our levels of standards. Let's look at where people fell down and where they did well, and can we then take the thing forward and move them forward. So it's about working with those clubs now and making sure they can move into that. Maybe it expands in the next year or so. There's all other options we can look at, but we have to start somewhere. We're starting with some very strong bids, some very strong clubs, and I think it's going to be a great competition.
Do you think the nature of the process was prohibitive a little in the way it was designed to be so confidential that it almost precluded clubs from colluding together to be able to put bids together?
I don't think it was. I think the thing was confidential is important in these things, and think if it wasn't confidential, people would complain. So I think, from our point of view, it was done in a very professional manner. It was very clear what the criteria were, and everyone had the opportunity to present and make the case, and I think they did. And then the recommendations were made to the committee, and they were supported. And there was a lot of questions and answers going on in that, a robust process. And at the end of the day, decisions were made.
Just a final point on the Lichfield element. It's a condition of the elite performance squad that players must be playing in the top competition next year. What do the internationals at Lichfield do now? Obviously, rugby teaches, it's around the display here at Twickenham, respect and sportsmanship. Yet these players who are very loyal to their clubs are arguably going to be forced to leave them.
Absolutely, and that's unfortunate. We want them to be playing at the highest level we possibly can, and this competition is going to be the highest level.
A world-class competition is what you're looking for. Come September, what do you expect that to look like? Obviously, with the differences in some of the more established teams versus some of the newer ones, it's not going to look great if some of the scorelines are very heavily one-sided.
I think all new competitions have the challenges, and obviously new teams, new competitions, but I think the enthusiasm there, the quality of the opportunity in the player pool will be strong enough. I think we didn't expand beyond 10 clubs for that reason. We probably didn't have enough players. So I think the important thing here is to kick it off, get things moving, make sure there's a good balance of players as best we can.
In your role as Director of Professional Rugby, it's a big year for the women's game. There's the Women's World Cup coming up in August, of course. In terms of the professional contracts, I know a lot of those players will be coming to the end of those. There's then a Sevens programme to look forward to for the for the Sevens World Cup and the Commonwealth Games. Is there any forethought at this stage about where perhaps some of those forwards might end up come September post World Cup as to whether they'll remain on contracts with England?
Well, absolutely. We want to keep the thing going forward. You know, there's Six Nations coming up as well. There'll be November internationals. The game doesn't just stop after a World Cup. It keeps going forward. We've got a great competition to get going as well. We don't want players leaving the game. We want to keep things moving. We've got 48 contracts at the moment. We want to keep going. Yes, there's a lot of Sevens opportunities. There'll be the Commonwealth Games. There'll be World Cups. Then there's qualification for Olympics. And then we're back to World Cups again. We need to keep the whole thing going forward. It's not just about one or the other. It's
no doubt been a pretty tough process to get through. How pleased are you to finally be able to announce these 10 teams and to look ahead to this competition?
We're delighted. You know, it's fantastic. Now we've got something to really get hold of and start working with. To, you know, everyone talks about, you know, the teams that are very disappointed, but there's also 10 teams out there extremely excited about this opportunity who work really hard to make sure that they get things right.